Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Propagandacast with me, Imperial Dane. And today I have for you a 1 vs 1 on Semois. Yes, indeed, it is time for a small night raid by the Germans in the dark of the night. Oh dear, the boogeymen are out. But who shall be fighting? It shall be Mts007. Not entirely sure what that is, but we'll just call him Hauptmann M. 706th Bodenständige Grenadier Division forced into the rather unfortunate situation of having to launch an attack. Fortunately, he's perhaps not relying only on Osttruppen, and who shall be fighting him? It shall be DoomManta. Yes, indeed, the Manta of Doom, a terrible foe. And there he is, 4th Infantry Division, leading the way through the night as he holds this important river crossing. Shall the Germans overthrow him? Who can say? I can, but that would be spoiling everything. Let's get right to it, eh? Of course, Semois, for those that don't know, is a rather interesting map. Center part is heavily urban, lots of building, churches, lots of heavy cover. Everything else, numerous paths to get around from both sides, albeit to get into this central area of a sort there are these numerous sort of choke points which can be a bit hard to be dealt with, but these two right in front of the bases can be usually seen closed off. These ones a bit harder. There are a few more paths there, and usually people forget this and these bits. So there you go. Of course, the only medium yield fuel points are right next to the bases, otherwise there's only low fuel and otherwise high munitions for everyone at the victory points in the outer skirts of the map. Wehrmacht quarters up, it seems. Pioneers and engineers marching out to all sides. Riflemen on the way. All good there. Nothing unusual. The Bodenständige on their way. Of course, we don't know if they do have Osttruppen or if they're just supposed to fight with their low quality troops. And we are seeing an MG42 out from the start. Could be he wants to set up a sort of homemade Widerstandneste, which was a sort of resistance point the Germans had alongside the entire Normandy beach front. Basically fortified punts from where to organize the defense of the beaches. Somewhere well equipped, somewhere not even really finished, since the Germans were lacking resources despite best efforts, plus there was some confusion among different teams they had working on the defenses actually, which only makes it more silly. Anyhow, we are seeing some pioneers getting awfully close to American lines. Riflemen are also awfully close to spotting these pioneers, but apparently ignoring them, while the MG42 apparently setting up in the church. Oh no, they shall not be preaching from the house of God. They shall instead be setting up in this little house to cover this strategic point. He's rather hoping for a very, very early lockdown, which is in fact a rather bold and aggressive move, and he's not been spotted, which is actually what's allowing him to get away with it. And so far he's yet to actually been spotted in a rifle engaging some pioneers. Pioneers were not quite like American engineers. Pioneers were more like regular troops. They of course did engineering duties, but they also did assault duties and would usually also find themselves in the front line fighting, unlike engineers who usually were thrown in there as a sort of last resort when the Americans in the later stages of the war were actually lacking in infantry themselves. And they usually did not perform too terribly well, if I am not mistaken. Another MG42 really going for the Bodenständige bit. Really a static play we are seeing from Hauptmann M. MG42s everywhere. No Volksgrenadieren. Another MG42. We are really seeing a rather passive player. Of course, this is something some players might in fact of course have problems with. MG42s everywhere, and then oh my goodness, how can I overcome these buzzsaws of doom? How shall I overcome this glorious German weaponry? And of course, how do you do so? You don't. Oh, just kidding. But of course, it does require some thought. It does require some aggressiveness and boldness, and certainly he's trying with riflemen from all sides, but he is finding perhaps that a bit problematic, as more and more MG42s are hitting the field. Lots of pioneers, but no infantry at all, which of course is a slightly interesting bit. Riflemen approaching from the west as well. MG42 team number 3 setting up lots of MG42s. I do believe that's actually a platoon's worth of MG42s right there, or in fact a team. No, a platoon. So that's actually quite a bit. In fact, I do believe it's somewhere close to the entire allocation what a company of infantry actually would have in heavy machine guns. Riflemen really trying to hunt down these MG42 troopers, but they are quick to get into this house, scarpering in, and these riflemen are standing in the wrong side, getting gunned down, doing their best. And what is this? Looks like they're going to try and just utterly ignore this MG42. In fact, that's what he seems to be constantly doing, just utterly ignoring them. MG42s, I don't need to fight them. Very good, aggressive, mentally flexible maneuver here. And now, of course, letting it sit up, and then he's going straight for this point, ensuring perhaps that it will be in American hands, while at the same time he's going rather heavily in the west. Wehrmacht commander trying to take points, but at the same time he's finding his forces rather inadequate in actually hunting down these riflemen. Grenades being researched, my goodness, and more riflemen. He's really going for that sort of heavily aggressive assault maneuver, grenade down your throat sort of tactics. We are seeing a sniper again, lots of support. That's the sort of thing I generally recommend you don't do as Wehrmacht or anything else, as it can usually end up biting you in the ass. Of course, currently does have a nice part of the map. Now these pioneers though are getting forced away by a large squad of American riflemen. Of course, I refer to units as teams, since, well, a general squad was around 10 to 12 men actually, and not 6. So yeah, apologies if you have found that confusing for some time, but I've always found more interesting as calling teams. And of course, it could have been fun then if you could actually train them as squads and then get 2 fire teams. Might actually make for some interesting larger scale battles, and might also for some other bits. But anyways, that is me rambling on, and for that I do apologize. Pioneers advancing, and MG42 setting up here, creating a sort of net here between these 3 buildings, a sort of triangle. Of course, it can't cover this bit, and of course the riflemen are quick to move through here, quite aware of this map and quite aware of all these small bits to get through. And we are seeing a weapon support center. What shall come up from this weapon support center, I can't say, although my guess would be a mortar team or a sniper. 30 caliber won't do much against those MG42s in houses, since machine guns in general aren't so effective against infantry in buildings. I do believe there's a 50% loss in effectiveness against garrison units. My apologies. And there's a listen in, not letting Conrad throw his grenades. He simply flew too high, flew right through the windows, and those MG42 gunners are relatively safe, although they're still getting torn apart. So good job there, riflemen, doing quite a bit of harassment. That's quite brilliant work there from DoomManta. Quite the able harasser, really good job there, not letting him be dug down in one point, but instead just taking every other point and rendering all of this territory rather useless for our Wehrmacht commander. And we are seeing the mortar up. What shall be going on? Let us see, let us see. Mortar round shall fly. And we'll probably be seeing some plumes of smoke. Oh my goodness. Is this a general actual assault on this building? Flamethrowers with engineers and smoke, my goodness. A player actually using smoke to launch an assault. This is really exciting, and there we go, more plumes of smoke. And how shall the Wehrmacht commander react? I mean, this is generally something you rarely see, but really a great big applause for DoomManta. And Mr. Mts007 is getting out of there, retreating in the face of the smoke, the signal of the assault, although DoomManta I suppose could have been a bit faster to get out of there. MG42 though standing about. Fuel, and my goodness, even began laying down barbed wire to make it harder for the German commander to retake this fuel point. Absolutely devious. MG42 now setting up in the church. Shall he repeat his trick, or shall the rifleman just set up right here perhaps and just put on some pressure? Of course he has flamethrowers as well, but the mortar is getting closer, so we'll have to see. Sniper firing away at these riflemen. Riflemen are not reacting though. And there we go, retreating, riflemen moving in from all sides, and the mortar getting close as well. What shall happen? What shall happen? And riflemen from this angle as well, not looking good for this MG42. Grenades flying, doing quite a bit of damage, and right at the front of the door. Rather clever maneuver there, just in case. Sometimes some players will throw the grenade at the door, and of course you can't really see where the grenade is standing in the first place, so of course most people get their troops out. Of course they don't want to lose troops. And then of course all troops are gathered right at the doorstep and right in front of a grenade. Boom. No more infantry team or MG team or whatever sort of unit was hiding inside there. Can really be used for quite a volatile effect. Let us return to the action. Straight on and onwards. No more smoke from the mortar, but then again, something tells me we won't be seeing the last of that. At the same time, we are seeing the MG42 holding up here, rather rearwards position, rather interesting. He's rather expecting perhaps some really heavy harassment from the American commander, probably. Engineers advancing forwards right into the arc of fire of this MG42. There we go, blasting away. Engineers suppressed, and we are seeing a jeep as well, ready to spot any snipers. And there we go, sniper there. Albeit he is a slightly exposed position. Jeep moving in as well now. No mines at all for the German commander, which really might have been to his disadvantage, in particular since he held this territory for so long, but haven't bothered to lay down mines. That's really what I'd call his mistake. Jeep continuing the hunt for snipers. There we go. Driving in. Sniper is out, negative cover, making the Jeep even more effective against him. Rather unfortunate. It looks like this sniper will have sniped his last American. There we go. Cut down by the 30 caliber, and he is dead. And supply yard center already up. Morton not doing anything. He's probably a bit preoccupied elsewhere. Rather aggressive movements right into the center, which has now been cleared of any Germans. Mind you, there weren't really an awful lot of Germans in the first place. Just some MG42 teams, and he's continually getting more pioneers. My goodness, he's spamming them, but he doesn't really seem to be getting much out of them. In fact, now pioneers moving in from northeast with actual flamethrowers. Devious. And now the mortar setting up in the graveyard or not. Apparently, not entirely sure what he wants to do. There we go, setting up. Large pioneer force. Small team there. All in all. And the mortar seems to be moving out once more. Unclear of what to do. And we are seeing a motor pull up as well. And a pack, but still not really a lot of infantry. Only support units and pioneers. Not really called pioneers. Frontline units, not at least these pioneers and company of heroes. And they're forced to run the gauntlet. Mortar moving forwards. And looks like this MG42 will be the next target of the wrath of the mortar. Or shall it be the smoke? In fact, let's go have a look at MTS. No doctrine, no infantry at all. Lots of pioneers, MG42s, and a pack. Now the mortar opens up once more. Rifleman getting suppressed. And smoke once more. He really loves his smoke. Will the Americans be a bit more timely in their assault and get close? Or will the Germans have time to retreat? There we go, once more. Getting out, of course, not a bad idea, since it usually smoke means you're going to get assaulted, but really, it can even then be used, of course, for simply mere psychological effect, of course, that you're just giving the impression you're going to attack, which, of course, it itself can also be a pretty good maneuver. Oh my goodness, I'm seeing smoke. I'd best prepare for an assault, and then, of course, you attack somewhere else. I mean, again, really clever, and of course, the question is if he's just using smoke because it's fun, because he's sort of a wannabe pyromaniac, or if he's having that sort of ruse mentality, this sort of strategic deception. And now we're seeing half-tracks as well, no armored cars, but really interesting tactics and strategy so far. Really high mobility, and now he's getting half-tracks. Will he use that to further support this strategy slash tactic he's using so far? And currently the Wehrmacht commander still hasn't gotten a single infantry unit. He's still relying on pioneers, MG42s, and now a mortar team. Granatenwerfer 34. One of the 3 mortars in service of the Wehrmacht. There was also a lighter one. Oh wait, number 4. There was also sort of short-barreled one, which was in use for paratroopers, although I believe some units were also equipped with them due to a shortage of the other types. And then there was also the heavy mortar, 120mm, which was a exact copy of the Soviet mortar. In fact, a lot of the Axis troops used it. Hungarians, Romanians, and, well, probably the Finns as well. Generally, it was a very nice design, I believe, although it could have been fun to see it with the Wehrmacht, but that is not the case. Half-track getting ready, disgorging some infantry, still gunned and manned. Pioneers laying down a lot of tank traps, apparently wanting to secure this isle against any mechanized assaults. Rather interesting dashing maneuver there. Of course, if that half-track were to catch those pioneers as they're laying down construction work, of course, it might tear right through them with that nasty 50 caliber machine gun, which is still in use today. Mortars heading up, ready to bombard here, but currently most of the map isn't currently in the hands of the Americans, and now we're really seeing a really mechanized movements here for the American commander. 2 half-tracks really outmaneuvering the German commander, and not entirely sure if this would work against a regular Wehrmacht commander, but really rather interesting. Certainly not bad, and really a good choice against this commander who's really gone for the bodenständige bit, this really earth fast static type of strategy, and really could end up very nastily biting me in the ass. Of course, I'm pretty sure DoomManta shall be laughing at this heartily as he drives by in his half-track gunning away. And riflemen marching in from north, mortar as well, ready to deliver some counter-mortar vengeance. Of course, the American mortar does have a shorter range, but at the same time it does more damage to infantry in general. And there we go, German mortar finding himself rather exposed. Might even find himself being hit by the American mortar. And what is it doing? No, it's not retreating. It's standing up right on the edge of the water, trying to stand under the aegis of the MG42. Oh dear. And of course, mortar rounds now beginning to land amongst the positions. And the half-track moving in for the kill. 50 caliber machine gun absolutely tearing through the German troops again. The 50 caliber machine gun is an absolutely, and just see there, it absolutely tore through those troops inside the building. The half-track with his 50 caliber weapon is an absolutely lethal weapon. Do not underestimate it. There we go, gunning down pioneers as well. This is absolutely nasty, vicious. And Pack, though, getting a flank on this half-track. Of course, the weakness of the half-track is, of course, structurally, it's not very strong, and half-tracks weren't really meant as frontline combat units, like, say, a tank or an armored car. Okay, armored cars weren't even meant as that, but there you go. But now the Pack is getting mortared, and of course, this is rather his fault here. He shouldn't really have set his Pack upon it. He perhaps should have waited until he could have rescued it, but then again, what could he have rescued it with? Because he has absolutely no bloody infantry. Again, really a big mistake here on his part. He is, though, getting a Sonderkraftfahrzeug 234, the Puma, or schwerer Panzerspähwagen. Now moving down here. Of course, the American commander is in a slight bind here because he has nothing to actually counter with. In fact, I do believe it is time for a mid-game analysis. Huzzah! The mid-game analysis, what some people like. I suspect what others can't really do without. But nonetheless, here it is for the slightly more novice. What is the situation? Well, currently the German commander has found his rather sort of laying down an iron ring of machine guns and mortars and pioneers has utterly failed him, because partly he didn't lay down barbed wire and he didn't lay any down mines, and of course he didn't really have any infantry to really react to any sort of threats. He did not have a mobile reserve, and that's what really biting him in the ass now. Having been rather viciously surrounded by the American commander, his only hope for survival is somehow this Puma, this schwerer Panzerspähwagen, really doing an extreme amount of damage, tearing through the Allied lines, being the beast from hell, and doing some very, very terrible things to American lines. Of course, question is, will it actually do that? Of course, it can possibly do that, since currently the American commander has absolutely nothing to actually deal with this Puma. He has no Cat Slayer units, but we shall see, What is the situation with DoomManta? Well, pretty much victory is in his hands. He basically just needs something to deal with this Puma, I wager, and then he's pretty much home safe. In fact, this Pack, which is of course rather trapped due to the tank traps, might in fact serve as the tool for American anti-tank vengeance. So of course we'll have to see. And let us return to the match of the day. No, apparently the riflemen are quick to ignore this. Riflemen are moving in, no grenades. And wait, there we go, grenade, no. Come on, throw a grenade so I can at least sound right. Damn you.
Enemy unit
Oh well,
down.
Pack though is cleared out. And looks like the riflemen will be making a move for the Pack. Panzerabwehrkanone 38, the 38 standing for the year where it entered into production, I believe. That is a rather common theme in a lot of tank vehicular designs. In fact, in general, they were generally named after the year they went into production. In case of the Americans, though, they were just given M1, M2, and 3. And the Soviet tanks were named after, designated after the caliber of the barrel, the T-34, name of the year, but then 76 stands for the caliber of the barrel, and the T-34 85 refers, of course, to the larger barrel. Riflemen moving in from Norfolk, getting suppressed. Otherwise, T-34, of course, stands for the year 34, where it was entered into production. Some of the rules that sort of go beyond that is, for example, the IS-2, which stands for a series, the IS-2 standing for Joseph Stalin. And yes, my apologies for going into Russian sort of nomenclature, but for some reason I just felt like doing it. And of course some people might find it interesting while we wait for something new to come up for the Company of Heroes franchise. Going for the triage center.
We have airborne troops ready to drop.
And we are seeing the Puma moving in from the north, crashing through. As to these number with the Sunderkar Fahrzeug, I'm not entirely sure. I do believe they were standing for sort of different series, but don't hold me up to that too much. I'm a bit unsure of that, but triage center going up, good job there. The Puma has actually managed to secure breakthrough for the German forces, but he really needs something to secure that with. Question is, will he be able to secure it, or will it all fall apart as the American forces under DoomManta push through with all force and nastiness? The Puma is hanging about in the north. Will there be more Pumas coming out? Apparently not. No infantry either. Instead he seems to be going for the Reich headquarters to get for some Reich upgrades. Jeep hanging about here in the center with a forward barracks and a machine gun in that forward barracks, ready to preach a sermon of bullets from the pulpit, and catching some pioneers out there. In fact, looks like we're having an MG42 captured there, and a strafing run really putting a stop to these pioneers, pinning them down. The Puma firing away with its autocannon. The autocannon really being part of a sort of a flat cannon. I don't know if it actually used as an anti-AA gun, but then again, most German weapons seem to have sort of anti-air configuration. In fact, the MG42 and 34 actually had a tripod mount, which allowed it to be used as an anti-aircraft gun. And looks like this Jeep might be cut apart by autocannon fire. Oh no, it makes it out of there quite miraculously. Instead, we are seeing a Greyhound armored car upgrading and charging ahead. Light recce, as the British would have said. The Americans say recon, I prefer to say recce. Sounds a bit more dashing. And going after the pioneers and the armored car, the Puma is unable to respond. The M8 having too thick armor for the autocannon to penetrate. The 37mm cannon on the other hand having no problem penetrating the armor of the Puma. The Hound goes after the Cat, and the Cat is forced to get out of there on its 8 wheels. Of course, Cats don't have 8 wheels. There you go. Once more pushing in the east. Not much luck for the Wehrmacht forces. Still no mines being used at all. Rather fun than interesting. And still no doctrine either. Curious maneuver there. But we are seeing a Panzer command. And sadly no smoke either. But still rather interesting maneuver so far from DoomManta. Good job indeed, in fact, I'd say. Puma getting upgraded with the actual turret that made it the Puma, the 50mm cannon. Turret itself was from the Leopard reconnaissance tank. Looks like he's ready to call in some armor. Could be a Panzer IV Ostwind or a Panther. We'll have to see. And the Puma is prepared. Also have some smoke launchers. I do believe those could also have been the close defense weaponry that some German armor had, which basically allowed it to fire off some mines to explode nearby. Something which you might see a version of in the Tiger Ace campaign, where it's called S-mines, which were actually bouncing mines. But there you go. Basically a sort of self-defense weapon that German armor was equipped with to some degree, to sort of aid alongside the MG. And looks like these American troops are getting caught in a storm of fire. The Puma continuing the hunt, and this mortar is caught behind enemy lines. Pioneers ready to repair the Puma, and the Puma's 50mm gun is more than a threat to this M8. And once more the Puma apparently leads the charge. And what are we seeing? We are seeing an Ostwind, but still no infantry. And looks like a Pioneer team was lost to another Greyhound. In fact, looks like there are more Greyhounds circling around a wolf pack against this kitty cat. Yes, a bit of rhyming and more cat. And what is this? The Ostwind flag Panzer Mind you, the Ostwind, I do believe, came later in the war, around the late war of 1944 period there. In Normandy, it would be more likely the Flakpanzer Dynamics T Gepard, which was based on the Panzer 38T, the sort of tank which was the basis for the Hetzer and the Marder 3. And it would also have been the Möbelwagen, which was sort of like the Ostwind, actually just had a rather goofy looking turret, I believe, although there was also a quad mount upgrade as well. And looks like the Ostwind hit a mine. Otherwise, the German anti-tank assets were mostly done by either static weaponry or towed, or by half-track mounted stuff. And looks like the Greyhounds are on the prowl, and the Puma comes under quite a bit of fire, but a pack fires off in support, which could end up very badly for this Hound. In fact, looks like it won't even be able to limp away. And there we go, shot to the rear. No American mechanics to pull that thing together, but the Puma will have to get out of there, otherwise the Greyhound will be able to get a target. And there we go, MG42 providing covering fire for all of this, but again, I'm really missing some infantry to really support. Ostwind moving in from the north, firing away here, and Gesundheit. Puma getting repaired as well, but again, no infantry, and that's really what's biting me in the ass. He's managing alright with the Ostwinds, but without infantry to really support it, he's going to have some problems. Ostwind taking mortar fire. In fact, looks like the engine has been damaged. And had this game been able to more accurately model vehicles, that turret would probably be knocked out, since it's actually an open turret, and of course those were rather vulnerable to mortar fire and other things like that. Could be we'll see that in a future company Village game. And looks like the M8 moves in. Still no real anti-tank assets out from DoomManta, rather interestingly. But looks like this Ostwind though is not doing too well. Limping forwards, another Ostwind moving in from the north. Will there be sticky bombs? Apparently not. Will there be anti-tank guns? Apparently not. No, there we go, sticky bomb, and the Ostwind number 2 hits a mine as well. Ostwind number 1 out, destroyed by the M8, but Puma and Ostwind number 2 moves in and might clear out that M8 very swiftly, and the entire field is ablaze with fire. The Ostwind, a blazing beacon of the fatherland as it crashes through lines, and my goodness, the Puma was knocked out by an anti-tank gun which came out from the 4 barracks, and now the Ostwind ablaze goes out in a blaze of glory, and looks like this anti-tank gun is caught between all the wreckage. A bit unfortunate, and probably also a bit hot considering it's all on fire. Just look at it. Oh dear, this is a rather tragic thing, and I'm certain it spells a certain fight for Mr. MTS in a penal battalion in the Eastern Front, in a cold, cold trench alongside all those other chaps who have failed the fatherland in such a disgraceful manner, to really just throw away Ostwinds like that. And a Puma, and no infantry at all. Now he's going for a lot of Nebelwerfers. I'm not suspecting this is a highly veteran officer, that's for sure, and I doubt he will become one. Generally, you don't want to spam assets. In general, you want some infantry to support your vehicles and armor, and again, he seems to be neglecting that bit instead of just sort of splitting out some units in numbers and then hoping that will somehow turn the tide. And of course, Nebelwerfers aren't too good against light vehicles and such. And we are seeing a registered artillery barrage going in, finally having chosen a doctrine, but not really the one he needs. He doesn't need to be on the defensive, he needs to be on the move, so Terror or Blitzkrieg to show them give them the fear of the fatherland once more, but apparently that is not the case of the Bodenständige Grenadier Division.
Defended the fatherland until death.
It looks like some pioneers were lost. This is not looking good at all for the Wehrmacht. Pioneers on the retreat once more, and once more Cheese hold within his space. The Nebelwerfer fires away. One of the 2 main Nebelwerfers. There was also one that fired larger rockets. It was pretty much the same configuration, except it fired 5 rockets, I believe, instead of 6.
Americans are seizing territory from us.
Otherwise, there was the Panzerwerfer, which was basically a mobile Nebelwerfer, and some other models, including the one in the Wurfrahmen, which went on Hotchkisses and half-tracks and such. but rather heavy barraging of the center. But again, he has nothing to actually follow up on that barrage. You can't just bombard an opponent, you also need infantry to follow up with that assault. Otherwise, it's all for naught. And now he's getting another Ostwind. Oh dear. He really seems to be itching for that eastern front posting. And air reconnaissance flying over the base, giving an idea of what's going on. Not a bad idea to use air reconnaissance in such a manner. Greyhound hanging about here, being rather sneaky. Riflemen keeping these pioneers at bay. The Nebelwerfers crawling through the wreckage here. And the Ostwind moving through here. Not entirely sure what they are planning though. And the pioneers running, panicking past the Nebelwerfers. Not entirely sure what this Ostwind is intending. Could be it had something. Ooh, looky there, fireworks. Again, you really have to marvel at the sort of details that Relic have made to this game. And the cinematic nature of this game, yet at the same time it's a rather excellent strategy game, if I might say so. And of course you do just sometimes get these very wonderful moments in Company of Heroes, so let's just enjoy it a bit. Some good artillery barrages flying through the sky, and what are we seeing? Airborne dropping in with supplies and everything. This is a rather bold thing, but at the same time, if properly used, of course, he can have a lot of gear right close to the German base, and of course a mortar right next to it. You could of course in fact bombard the German base with it. M8 moving in. Oh dear, oh dear. But no, and now the mortar and heavy machine gun gets crewed, and the mortar looks like it might be firing right at these Nebelwerfers. Sneaky, sneaky DoomManta. And looks like the Ostwind charges right into everything, blundering through. And now the mortars are beginning to hit the Nebelwerfers. The Ostwind tearing through these remaining Americans or whatever. And barely any victory points left for the German commander. He has absolutely failed in his duty to the fatherland. And this Nebelwerfer has in fact been cleared out by this rather sneaky mortar team right behind enemy lines. The pack as well, my goodness. And out of control Ostwind. There we go. And so question is of course, what can we learn from this? Well, going heavily static isn't really going to help you in the long run. As you noticed, you really need infantry to help serve as a more mobile response force. At least even if you're going heavy on machine guns, you really need some infantry to help with that. Otherwise you're going to fail miserably. As you saw there, of course, smoke can really make a good effort, even if it's just for the sake of, even if he's going to move, he's still moving and thus letting you get closer. So just using smoke, good move there. Nice use of half tracks, although in the long run they didn't get much to do, but still rather heavy mobility, rather nice. Lack of anti-tank gases or mines on both sides. That was really what could have been great. If either side had used some mines, they might have done a lot better. Although of course I should not discount DoomManta's use of mines in the town there. That did a bit, but at the same time he probably could have laid down more. And for Mr. MTS, he really could have done with a lot of mines when he held that entire central area, but he didn't bother to lay down a single mine. So many mistakes, but really good use of smoke. Sending in armor unsupported, very bad in fact. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this match. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends, and if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own. I always accept 1 versus 1s and 2 versus 2s victory points. I don't take annihilation games. The gameplay tends to be a bit slowish and a bit odd. Anyhow, there you go. Hope you enjoyed it, and cheers.